Hello, welcome to another episode of the Words of Our podcast. I am your host, Dion Sanchez, and in this particular episode, we are wrapping up season 3. It is finally the season finale. Woo! Yeah, I don't have special sound effects. Anyhow, before I get into a quick synopsis of what this episode entails, first and foremost, let me thank all of my guests for season 3. Season 3 launched earlier this year in August, and it's just been an incredible season with incredible guests, incredible stories, just absolutely heartwarming. And I cannot be more grateful for all the speakers and guests who have appeared, fellow podcasters, TEDx speakers. Special shout out to Alexis and Justin Black, who were guests on the second season of my podcast, who had the immense privilege and honor of appearing on my podcast again for season 3. That episode is called Redefine Normal, I believe. Again, I do a lot of episodes, so my apologies if I get confused, but thank you again, Alexis and Justin, for returning to be on my podcast to share your important message. Thank you to the podcasters I've collaborated this season. The last collaboration was with No More Late Fees, a 90s and 2000s movie podcast. The hosts, Jackie and Danielle, we had so much fun, a bunch of laughs, and discussed our top 5 favorite movies. It was an absolute pleasure, and I was clowned for not knowing all of Matthew Lillard's iconic films. My apologies. Far as I know, he will always be Scooby-Doo and Fred. Wait, no. See, again, I'm mixing up my facts here. He will always be Shaggy to me. I'm just going to be honest. Shaggy and the dude with the funky dance moves and She's All That. And also in the movie with Summer Catch with Freddie Prinze Jr. Anyhow, thank you to them. I believe they were my last podcast collaboration of this particular season. So be sure to check out their podcast as well. Again, it's been such a heck of a season. So let's give some highlights to that season as well. This past August, we celebrated a year of the Words of Heart podcast. I've been podcasting for a year. When the new season returns, it will be 2 years since I've launched. And I'm just so grateful for the outpour of support from my listeners, you, my listeners, my audience, and just everyone who's extended some support to this podcast on some level. I have to give a massive thank you, because not only was this season incredibly special, this past January, Words of Heart podcast was featured in the Women Who Podcast magazine for their 2022 winter issue. And I, of course, was featured in it as well as the founder and or creator of this show. So huge thank you to Emily. Again, it's been a long day, people. I've been holding off this season finale and I'm finally doing it. So thank you to the writer of that particular article, Elaine Best. I hope I said that right. My apologies. Elaine Best. And also thank you to the editor-in-chief, Kathy Barron of Women Who Podcast magazine, for the tremendous and absolutely, truly blessed honor of being featured in a podcast magazine, specifically that highlights female podcasters such as myself, and being featured alongside many other incredible podcasters as well. So thank you, truly. It was such an honor and is without a doubt the immense highlight of my season in my podcasting journey as a whole thus far. So thank you, Elaine Best, for writing the article, who's also the host of Angus IT podcast. There you go. And Kathy Barron, the editor-in-chief of the magazine. Truly, thank you so much for featuring me and my podcast in your magazine. As I mentioned, this season has been an incredible season. I have to give another shout out as well to my sister, Kayana Redmond. She launched season 3 this year. I believe the topic was called Leaning In, and we pushed the envelope in that particular episode. We pushed the envelope, which kickstarted this season. So thank you to my wonderful sister, Kiana Redmond, for kicking off this season 3 and just embarking us into an incredible season, truly. So much love to you, sis, for kicking us off. And yes, so as I mentioned, season 3 was a heck of a season. And I'm going to share the most viewed episodes of this season. So let's start with number 3. Number 3, the third season of the third most viewed episode of season 3 is Porn Addiction. It has 43 views. That was with TEDx speaker Joshua Shea. I hope I said that right. I know he follows me still. That was an incredible episode. It's a topic I don't cover that often, or actually I believe it was the first time I've ever covered the topic, which would explain the immense amount of views. It was such an incredible interview and a conversation, and I just truly, truly, truly loved that I discussed that in this particular season. The next episode is Imperfect Life, But Beautiful. That has 48 views. That was an incredible episode as well. And the number 1 episode with the most views. This was my most recent interview. It was with a viral TikTok star, Zach Barber. This has 65 views and 6 likes and 1 comment. Out of all the interviews and videos I've uploaded to YouTube, because again, I upload these interviews on Facebook and YouTube. So out of all the times I've uploaded an episode, this particular episode got the most views I've ever received on YouTube specifically. And Zach Barber is known as the relationship guy. That is his alias, that is his handle. He gives relationship advice on a variety of topics: relationships, single, dating, being alone, what girls like, what girls hate, what secretly turns girls on, what secretly turns guys on, what makes you a good boyfriend, what makes you a bad boyfriend, what's something that girls could do that would make guys like them more. The list goes on and on and on. And I had the immense privilege of having him on my podcast. I was starstruck. It was such an honor to have probably one of the most viral TikTok stars appear on my podcast. And without a doubt, a huge highlight in this season as well, to have someone of his caliber appear on my podcast. So again, shout out to Zach Barber for not only appearing on my podcast, but giving my particular podcast episode with you the most views in the history of my podcast, honestly. So thank you again. And to continue this highlight particular episode, I'm going to share ratings and reviews of Words of Heart podcast. So let's start with this one. This username is Ridiculous Patronus 1. He gave a 5-star review. Here's the review. Really deep thought and dived into music videos. Really will make your immense and feel the nostalgia of the emotional state of music. Very detailed and intellectually challenging. Excellent host, look forward to more. That is just one of the few reviews of people just loving my podcast and extending support. Let's keep going. So this one is from Tony Danza. I believe he's a fellow podcaster as well. So let's hear what he had to say. A really lovely podcast. I enjoy hearing stories from Dion and the guests she has on. Thank you, Tony. Here is another podcast review. Now, this podcast review, it kind of hurt me a bit. I'm just going to be honest. As a podcaster, you want support, you want acknowledgement, you want the good stuff. that comes with it sometimes. I'm just going to be honest. So the last thing a podcaster wants is 1 star. So I'm going to read this review anyway, but as podcasters, we do support other podcasters. And for me, it kind of hurts because had I known, I perhaps maybe wouldn't have gave him 5 stars. But again, I mean, at the end of the day, I support everybody. 4 stars, 5 stars. I mean, for me, I give 5 stars because that's just me. You want to get to that level. So I'm gonna read it. But yeah, this one, it hurt me to see a 1 star review. It really did. So, all right. Sir Carter 25, he says, love this podcast. My favorite episode is Emotional State of Mind, and I love the lessons and education on this show. Keep up the good work. So the episode he is referring to is literally called Emotional State of Mind. And I believe Eric Mita, who was an EFT practitioner, was my guest for that particular episode, one of the earliest episodes of season 2 specifically. And it was a real privilege and honor to have him share his story and vulnerability as far as how EFT works and how it pertains to his own personal story. So let's keep going. All right, the next one is Podcaster 0217. This is a 5-star review. This reviewer said this. I believe it's a female podcaster. I think I do a fairly good job of keeping up with everybody, but let's read it. Dion has such a nice voice, and listening to this podcast brings me a lot of joy. I appreciate her validation and kindness. Keep it up, girl. You rock. Thank you, Podcaster 0217. I believe you're a podcaster as well. So if you guys are tuning into this episode, be sure to look her up as well. All right. All right. I believe I will read 2 more reviews, and then I'll wrap this season finale up, if you will. This one is a 5-star review. I believe the podcaster is Jason Kebley. I'm not quite sure. There's a lot of reviews and writers on here. I have about 51 ratings and reviews for those of you who would like to leave a review. So let's read it. Look, the world needs more positivity, and that's what Dion brings. There's enough bad stuff in this world. Have a dose of something good for your soul. Thank you, Jay Kevler. All right, so the last one. All right, what should the last one be? All right, I have a lot of reviews and ratings. It's hard to pick one. All right, I'm going to read this one because it is from fellow podcaster Emily the Wondering Mind. Her podcast is called The Wondering Mind Podcast. She's an Emily Elizabeth. Yes, there you go. She's an incredible podcaster. I had the immense privilege of appearing on her podcast a couple weeks ago, and it was a true honor, and she's a true advocate for mental health as well. So let's read her review, shall we? I just love this podcast for her passion, honesty, and service to her listeners. She also wrote Dreams Come True. Thank you, Emily. You are an incredible podcaster, and I'm truly honored to be in your presence and to have the privilege of knowing you. So that is it for the season finale. Again, this season has been a heck of a journey, but I am so happy for what's in store for season 4. If you enjoyed this episode, if you want to catch up for the previous episodes in this season and more, here are the ways to do that. You can find us at the Words of Fire podcast on Facebook. We're also on YouTube and wherever you listen to your podcast, Apple, Spotify, Google, Pandora. The list goes on. So again, I am your host, Dion Sanchez. thank you for tuning into this season finale episode. Be sure to catch up on many episodes in the meantime. And again, stay healthy, stay safe, and I will see you in the new season.